entire chart. We're also working on developing protocols, guidelines, and regulations which are very key, which will facilitate the trading of electricity within the power pools and inter-power pools, which means within the regions. And in addition, to be able to facilitate this, we are working in enabling and establishing, as well as capacitating the regional regulators with the market rules, which will help in also facilitating the trading between the power pools. If you allow me, Kevin, just to conclude, is there is a very good, or I should say the M300 is fully aligned with our continental initiatives of the AFSEM and the CMP as Agenda 2063 flagship projects, in the sense that they all are targeted to financing concrete actions which will accelerate energy access within the continent, attract private sector investment, bring out the needed reforms in the electricity sector, provide regional of power integration, as well as expanding markets. And as I close, Kevin, if you allow me, is what we believe is we need to build synergies and harmonize on these various initiatives so that they will complement each other and we can attain both objectives of the AFSEM CMP and the Mission 300. And I thank you.
African actors and supporting the Africa Single Electricity Market and CMP. Please tell us more about this project because it will become a very interesting part of the jigsaw.
Thanks a lot. Good afternoon to everybody. I just want to continue where I ended in the previous panel when I said apart from the financing, also regulation is essential. And I would say the African single electricity market and the CMP are very much in the core of what needs to be done cross-border on the continental level. I would go even a bit further. BMZ is not only cooperating in the energy, on the energy markets and energy systems with our African partners, but also on the establishment of the African Continental Free Trade Area. And I would say, no, I am convinced it's impossible to create an African Continental Free Trade Area without a single African electricity market. And it is also impossible, or maybe not impossible, but extremely cost-intensive to reach Mission 300 or even more the overall 2030 agenda target, providing electricity for each and everyone, not for 100 million, not for 200 or 300 million, for each and everyone. So also for this one, the integrated market is essential. And maybe I can share here from the European perspective that without creating the single European electricity market, our German energy system would not be as advanced as it is now. It would be much harder to reach our goal of carbon neutrality by 2045 without this integration on the continental level. And as we are convinced that this is the right way to go, apart from our bilateral cooperation, regional cooperation, the support for the African Union institutions on creating this ASFAM and CMP is of highest value for us, and therefore, as you said, I try to avoid in the first session to come out with all the numbers, what we are providing, how many millions and billions and there. But here I think, although it's not the biggest number I could mention, 16.5 million technical assistance, to the AU level as well as for the South African power pool to go along this way is something I'm really happy to announce here, and I hope that this will be a fruitful way forward.
To further develop these tools. I think at the end of the day, the aim is to convert CMP and AFSEM into tangible physical assets that will interconnect the entire continent. What is AUDA NEPA doing in this regard?
No, it works. You don't have to switch. Just talking.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Speaking here on behalf of Madame Neldo Thomas, Chief Executive Officer.
Just hold on.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm speaking here on behalf of Madame Nardos Bekele Thomas, our Chief Executive Officer at ODA NEPAD, actually, to make sure that we move the implementation of the CMP AFSEM. We are basically investing as of now with the support of African Development Bank, but also BMZ and other partners in two things, which is the phase 3 of the CMP. Number one, strengthening building capacity of member states, utilities, but also regional power pool. That's number one. And then number two, at the same time, investing into long-term planning. The objective here, obviously, is to strengthen national and regional transmission network. As you know, we really need to invest about $30 billion in a transmission system between now and 2030 so that we can unlock the path for achieving the objective of the CMP. We need as well to scale up renewable energy projects, invest more in solar, wind, hydro, so that we can actually achieve the projected objective of 653 gigawatts of clean energy needed by 2040. And we are doing that through investing into early project preparation. And that's what actually ODA NEPAD does, again, with the support of our partners. And another aspect is to fast-track the cross-border interconnection. This is crucial. We are focusing on critical regional projects, such as operationalizing the East African power pool, but the Central Africa power pool, but also the North Africa power pool, by bringing them actually support. And we are also supporting the independent power transmission operators. This is extremely important. The objective here is really to attract the $1.3 trillion, which is actually needed to increase our power generation capacity. But to be able to do that, we also need really to fast-track the investment needed to build and operationalize the national and regional and cross-border transmission lines. That's actually the job we are doing at ODA NEPAD. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll come to you next, Joseph. We've heard about this concept of CMP and AFSEM. Now we think about real connections. Joseph Nganga is the Vice President of Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet. You have been leading engagements with governments in the past few weeks on the Dar es Salaam Declaration. Based on these engagements, how do you envisage that the Dar es Salaam Declaration will complement or help or operationalize the continental initiatives such as AFSEM or CMP that you've heard about?
Thank you, Vice President Kevin, and thank you for having me on the panel. I think the declaration captures exactly what the CMP and the AFSEM seeks to achieve, which is a clear confirmation that the work that's being done is critical to Mission 300 and to achieving electrification. Why do I say that? Because of three things. One, One of the 5 principles in the declaration is regional integration. Why? Because you extract a lot of value from leveraging each other's resources and assets in the most optimal way. You cannot do that without regional power pools. You can't do that without the Continental Master Plan. And so that is perfectly aligned. The second is the declaration's point seeks to drive private sector engagement. Private sector, particularly large-scale private sector, wants to build large projects. Large projects oftentimes are too big for just one country. By being on a regional power pool, you're able to supply hundreds of megawatts of solar in a very efficient way, thus lowering the cost per kilowatt hour, while ensuring regional power sustainability. So that's the second bit. And the third bit, I think, is in terms of policies and regulations. Governments, presidents tomorrow in the declaration will sign off on their commitment to implementing the right regulatory environment to drive Mission 300, of which one of them is regional integration. If a country prepares its policies and regulations only for themselves, they might lock out the optimization by regional integration. So by looking at it from a regional perspective, the policies and regulations will be encouraging for the ASEAN Continental Master Plan conversation. We have had conversations with private sector, civil society as well, to make sure they support the declaration, and you will hear the same exact points being mentioned. So incredibly complementary. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joseph. I think now we've developed the concept of CMP. We've decided that we can actually have the physical assets, but now we need the money. So that means I come to you, Dr. Kwakwa, World Bank Regional Vice President for Eastern and Southern Africa. The Continental Master Plan projects that the cumulative investments of approximately 1.3 trillion will be required for generation and cross-border transmission infrastructure by 2040. By any stretch of imagination, that's a lot of money. What do you see as the role of MDBs, such as the World Bank and the African Development Bank groups, in implementing the Continental Power Master Plan to ultimately actualize the Africa single electricity market and translate it into a reality?
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to be on this panel. Before I come to your question, let me say again what has been said by previous speakers, and particularly Joseph, the importance of power market integration and power trade in Africa. I think increasingly this is seen as a cornerstone of sustainable development on the continent. It will allow us to tap and to share economical sources of power and also promote energy security. So it's super important for what we're trying to do, the Mission 300. It's been very nicely explained. And I personally feel that Africa as a continent has the resources it needs to provide access to every single African and also to power the economies on the continent in a way that really drives growth and development. But we can't do this without integrating our markets and trading our power resources. So super important. You've talked about, and that's why, as Joseph said, it features prominently in the declaration. It also features prominently in the energy compacts that the countries are preparing. And so all of us recognize this and accept it. And I thank you for the work that Oda NEPAD is leading in this regard. Now, what role for MDBs? I think MDBs come in a variety of ways. First, as you said or alluded to, the financing, so bringing the money, and particularly helping to tap concessional money, both from the AFDB, from the World Bank, of course from other partners. But it's not just about bringing money. I think the volumes are important, and we're all stepping up on the volumes. It's also important that we're working in a way that we use concessional money to catalyze private money, because you need both public and private resources. The amounts are huge. So that's one thing. And we also need to work in ways that bring innovation. You know, we can't do business as usual if we're really going to accelerate the pace of electrification and the integration of the market. And so all of these are important. And this, I think we recognize, mention the policy and regulatory support that needs to come. And this is another area where MDBs like the World Bank and the AFDB can support and building the capacity of operators, enforcing regulations, the ability to enforce regulations and really make the markets function well. I would say that a very important element also is partnerships. You know, nobody can do it alone. The World Bank can't do it alone. The AFDB can't do it alone. We have to really work together to make this different and to make this work and to get to the single market that we're seeking to do. Let me quickly give a couple of examples of some of the work that the World Bank has been doing. I would say first, just in terms of volumes for the market integration agenda, between 2017 and now, we've mobilized about $7 billion for the market integration agenda, a lot of it in concessional money. To give concrete examples of some of the projects, we've just in 2022 saw the achievement of the Kenya-Ethiopia interconnector, which is now allowing Kenya to buy up to 200 megawatts from Ethiopia, and that could go as high as 400 megawatts. And again, that was done in partnership, not just by the World Bank, but with AFDB, and then with Agence France Développement. So partnerships are super important. We also have the Malawi-Mozambique line that is going to get completed this year. That again is a partnership with the World Bank, with the KfW and other European partners. And then we're also playing in the policy and capacity building space through the support of generous partners like Norway, Sweden, through SMAP support. So these are some of the things that we've been doing. Going forward, you know, we're stepping up and we're going to do more, aligned with Mission 300. And particularly moving from project-by-project approach to long-term program approaches. And so we've recently launched what we call the Regional Energy Trade, Transmission Trade and Decarbonization Platform, which will run alongside Mission 300 for at least the next 5 years, a little bit more, which is an effort to really provide support, accelerated or enhanced support to the Southern African and the Eastern African power pools. So we're calling it Retrade, and I'm pleased to say that just last week our board approved a 1.26 billion of the Retrade for the Southern African power pool that will really over some years support the development of energy trade in the Southern African power pool. The first project that's been approved is the Zambia part of the Tanzania-Zambia-Kenya corridor, which is super important because when it's achieved, it will bring into being the last part of that corridor that links East and Southern African power pools, which will create geographically the largest power market globally. You know, so that's really transformative and would really make a huge difference. And of course, we're working with others. In terms of innovative financing, we're working with IFC to put in place this transmission infrastructure finance facility, which is really the blended finance idea of bringing concessional resources to help address some of the issues around high risk and the cost of transmission infrastructure for the private sector, so that you incentivize the private sector to come in and do some of what it needs. I think at the center of this is really looking at transmission as something that the private sector can do. In the past, we've always looked at this as public sector, but part of the innovations is really coming in and supporting private sector to do more, and there is scope for that to happen. So let me close again by stressing the partnerships between, of course, the public and the private philanthropies, but importantly, the partnerships between the MDBs. And we're working closely with the AFDB in Mission 300, and we'll look forward to doing some more to make sure that we can seize the opportunity of market integration to achieve the bold ambition of Mission 300. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victoria.
Thank you.
Being an electrical engineer, I can actually see electrons flowing from Ethiopia to Kenya through the Kenya-Ethiopia interconnector, to Tanzania through the Kenya-Tanzania interconnector, from Tanzania to Zambia through the Zambia-Tanzania interconnector, and to the Southern African power pool. I think this is what we are. This is the essence of the Africa Continental Power Master Plan, and I think the infrastructure is going to be in place and result in actual trade throughout the continent. So I think finally, Mr. Francesco La Camera, who is the Director General of the International Renewable Energy Agency, I have one question for you. How can frameworks like the Africa Continental Master Plan and the Africa Single Electricity Market act as catalysts for achieving the goals of Mission 300, and how is IRENA supporting these efforts?
So thank you, Kevin, for your question, and also for having IRENA here in Dar es Salaam. You know that first of all, I like to commend the African Development Bank, the World Bank, for the 300 million initiative, and try to put the contribution of IRENA in the context that I'm presenting briefly. So first of all, we have to understand why Africa has been kept out in some way from the energy transition and the strong development of renewables around the world. We know that really a minimum part of investment in renewables has been made in the continent. The continent has potential to provide 1,000 times the electricity needed by the world. In our point of view, there are three structural barriers that are slowing the progress of renewables and the energy transition in Africa. The first one is the lack of infrastructure. We are complaining that the cost of capital is very high. Sometimes I always like to repeat that the cost of capital is not the illness, but it's just the symptom. So the fact that it is so difficult to invest in Africa in electricity. And why? Because there is a structural lack of infrastructure. What I'm repeating now from a few years, that when the process of reform of the multilateral financial institutions, the question is not only to have more inclusive decision-making processes or provide for having more loans or grants. The problem is for what? In my point of view, the multilateral financial institutions should be focused on the building on the infrastructure that is needed to support the new energy system that is coming. This must be the focus of the multilateral financial institutions. Also they have not the capacity, the financial capacity for doing that. But if there is a clear plan on what they intend to do in Africa, it will be much easier to associate the private capital and leveraging and work on the basis of partnership. So the best thing, in my point of view, is infrastructure and as a principal focus of the multilateral financial institutions. And then we go to the second barrier that we see, the lack of the market that is designed for having more renewables. And if you don't have a single power market, how this could happen? It will not happen. So first, infrastructure. Second, work on policies and legal environment that allow the market of electrons works. Third is that, a distributive energy system is much more resilient, based on renewables, is clean, and provide 3 times jobs that usual investment in fossil fuel on others. But the fact is that it could be also more difficult to manage that essentialized energy system based on fossil fuel. So we need to have institutions that are ready to manage this kind of system. We need professionals that are fitting with the needs of the new energy system. So these are the 3 main barriers. And so this reason, the 300 million initiative is fitting well, and what we are doing. So the fact that IRENA has been proud partners of the building of the Continental Master Plan, we have provided with the atomic energy the modeling for that. I think this is a very significant step in this direction, as has been important in our point of view. Without NEPAD, all the training activity they are performing to make the institution able to manage what is coming, and sort of to be leading on that. So this, we think, is important, the Mission 300, because it's fitting exactly in this context that we wish to guide. And what IRENA can do more on that. You know that following the Africa Summit in Nairobi in September 2023, we have launched the Accelerated Partnership for Africa. That is working well. We have, under the leadership of Germany, Denmark, the UAE, and the US, and the leadership of 11 countries that today are part of APRA, and we will be 15 before the summer. I think this could be try to connect with the compact exercise, because we have seen in our investing forum in Nairobi how this is working well. Now we have pipeline of projects. We are trying to make this project to be bankable. So there is a kind of a good line of work. And we also put in this our ETAF, our financial platform, that has now 14 partners, including Africa 50, including the World Bank, including with the IFC and MIGA. I think this could be another instrument. So please present project to ARENA. We will try to work with you to assess, prepare the document for the bankability, assess the bankability, and going forward. And just to say, in closing, how good has been the APRA initiative, that we are trying to showcase that. So we have launched with, in Azerbaijan, in Baku, an initiative, similar initiative for Central Asia. We will launch it at the end of this year, another initiative for Southeast Asia, but trying to remain to Africa. So, first, infrastructure, crucial role of the multilateral financial institutions, and all are we ready to work together for making this initiative to be a success. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So I think we are coming to the end of the panel session, but I'll still ask just one generic question for all of you, and in particular for Victoria and Joseph and maybe Kamugisha, because we are partners in the Mission 300. So if you look at your crystal ball and envision this Africa Continental Power Master Plan has been developed, fully developed, and throughout the NEPAD and other partners, we have been able to build this infrastructure that facilitates this market trade. What is your vision, especially with regard to Mission 300? Let's start with you, Joseph, then Victoria, and then we'll come to you. 1 minute each, please.
Thank you, Kevin, and it's a very interesting question. I will answer it by quoting the Minister of Power from Nigeria, who in a panel somewhere in Barcelona said, if Kenya's peak demand is 4 hours ahead of Nigeria, and we each have 4 hours of peak demand, why are we both building peaking plants? Why can't we leverage each other's infrastructure to finance, to actually use the power more efficiently? That can only happen if you have a continental master plan and you have the infrastructure such that the picking plants in Nairobi are available when Nigeria needs them. So my vision is we have the infrastructure, physical, in existence, and I'm delighted that we're now moving towards private sector investment in this infrastructure, but also the trading mechanism to optimize for every country's needs so that we get the cheapest electron, we maximize the capital asset utilization towards a more competitive electricity market. Our continent will only develop if we have affordable power, and this is one key part of that.
Thank you. Victoria?
Thank you. Look, I mean, first of all, if it's been achieved, that's super exciting, and it makes everything much easier. What I would like to see is essentially a point that the minister from Nigeria raised this morning, that he's trading and not getting paid. You know, so how do we make sure that there are good rules of the game that encourage countries to trade? And nobody's saying, well, I can't get paid if I put my power out and I give it. And you have a situation where sometimes countries can be exporters. Sometimes they can be importers, you know, depending on what their countries are going through, climate factors and so on. And so everybody benefits. And together we're pulling the continent forward. We're providing the access to individual households. And we're also powering our economies to pull this continent out of poverty and into prosperity.
Thank you very much, Victoria. I think Amin, very quickly, and finally Kazaura.
Thank you very much, VP Kevin. For ODANEPAT, first, I would like to reemphasize that we consider M300 as a step toward the achievement of the objectives of the CMP AFSEM, multiply by 5 our power generation capacity and ensure universal access by 2040, while complying with our commitment toward just and equitable transition. That's number one. Number two, of course, as an organization, we are going to continue to contribute to it by making sure that our member states have really the capacity, and that's the reason why, and it was reminded by the DG of IRNA, why we are also investing very much into early project preparation, because early project preparation is the best tool, instrument to make sure that we de-risk projects so that we can actually really go toward that. And then thirdly, our vision, of course, is to make sure that those who can produce the cheapest and in a stable manner would actually contribute to give access to those who cannot produce. That's the reason why we are promoting AFSEM. So all in all, for us, M300 is a step and a strong, solid step toward the realization of CMP AFSEM by 2040. Thank you.
Thank you, Kazaura, but also address Agenda 63, how this mission 300 fits into your Agenda 63, and we'll stop there.
Thank you very much, Kevin. I can think two quick things. One, what we envisage in 2040, once the AFSEM, CMP, the M300, and all the other continental initiatives are in place, that first thing, that we'll have electricity tariffs which are affordable throughout the continent, not the mismatch of tariffs we have, you know, if you go to south, north, east, or west of the continent or central. The second aspect is we will have increased generation of renewables in our energy mix, and further, the continent further continues to be the lowest contributor to greenhouse gases emission in the world. So these are the two aspects which I can quickly envisage to see will happen in the next 15 years once we have AFSEM, CMP, M300, and all the other initiatives we have fully operational. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think you'll all agree that we've had a very invigorating and insightful panel. Please join me in giving them a very hearty round of applause.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's do the exact same for Dr. Kevin Kariuki for an excellent job of moderating. Thank you very much, sir. Might I invite all of you for a photo opportunity, if I can invite you just to step forward, and the official photographers to please come and facilitate the photo opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, if I might have your attention while that photo opportunity is underway, to explain the final part of our program for this afternoon. We are now going to transition into a short series of really brisk and really concise conversations. We're going to be calling up onto the stage the moderator and their panelists, in most instances 2 or 3 panelists at the very most. And the view here is to really shine the spotlight on some of the challenges and opportunities in the sector.